Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
Fantasy Premier Lockdown instead.
Great.
Lockdown 2, James.
We can't wait, so we thought we'd talk about it.
So, Monday being People's Poll, there's still a couple of footy matches tonight. Fulham, West Brom. Leeds, Leicester this evening. So our full Game Week 7 review will be coming at you tomorrow. I recommend tuning in tomorrow.
Because?
I'm going to give you some shit for having such a bad game week. We're laughing.
Sir, let me remind you.
Mateus Pereira today is going to score 5 goals.
We predicted that to be high scoring, so maybe. But let me remind you, or like I reminded my neighbours last night, that Gareth Bale plays for Tottenham Hotspur.
We're gonna get into that, and I'm only in jest, but it's good to be able to laugh considering some of the things we're going to talk about now. It's People's Poll Day. You get to choose what we talk about, James. What were the options, and what was a landslide victory?
So there were 3 options. One possibility being the increase in muscle injuries in the Premier League. I think they're up about 42 to 45% on same time last year or something, like a pre-season, etc.
Yeah.
And as soon as I sent it out, Danny Ings went over and did his knee, although touch wood, original scan seems to be no long-lasting damage, so he might even be back sooner than expected. When it happened, I think most of us
Friday.
I doubt it. But I think when it happened, those of us saw it, thought, that could be season. It was horrendous the way his leg went. The other option was penalties. And if VAR is playing too big or too little of a role, no, I didn't know what was going to happen in the Tottenham-Brighton game.
The thing is, it is either too big or too little. It's never quite right. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
I think we'll discuss a couple of the incidents on tomorrow's podcast.
Well, if we must.
But just in brief, let's say. The subject that won quite clearly was life in lockdown and what do we do to cope and maintain mental health. If you've come for fantasy football tips, speak to you tomorrow probably.
Yeah. This
is for certain people. We're obviously, for those of us in the UK, we're now going back into lockdown from Thursday. There'll be no studio recordings beyond Wednesday. We're shutting down for a month. I suspect it might be longer. It feels like a smack again, another kick in the teeth. I mean, for us, for example, it's like we just got back into the swing of things. Being back here, it gets cut off again. So I think there's a lot of people struggling mentally with a lot of things at the moment, whether it be financial, family, work. There's so many things. So we just wanted to throw the idea in there in terms of how do we cope and just give our own kind of references to that.
Yeah, it's not easy because everybody's reference of where they are in terms of their life from a lot of these things is different. I'm blessed. I feel like my life is a real blessed situation, so it makes it a lot easier. And certain things maybe are harder for other people to deal with. But I would describe myself as a very resilient person, and the resilience in stuff like this is a blessing and a curse in certain situations, because I don't get too excited and happy when things are going well, but I also don't get too down when things are going badly. So I'm quite in the middle type person.
Is this a football influence? Because I kind of feel the same.
Perhaps. So something amazing could happen, and I'll just okay, cool, and I'll keep moving on. And people are like, why don't you should be more happy about that. I'm like, probably should. But the flip side of me not being happy about that is when something bad happens, I'm also not excessively annoyed about it. I keep moving on. So for me, a lot of resilience comes from that. And that comes a lot from perspective. That you have to put things into perspective. We were talking yesterday morning on the phone because I was out and about and the Sky deadline had crept up, and then thinking about what moves to make, and I didn't have access to everything at the time. And I was like, it doesn't really, there's more important things than this, because in the first 2 months so far, for Sky, for example, specifically, and a lot of people won't understand that you have a finite amount of transfers. I've had 5 injuries now. So that's like a quarter of my transfers almost are going to be gone as it stands this season on fixing problems. What am I going to do? Beat myself up about it? Like I didn't predict or pick injury-prone players particularly. That's life. You've just got to put it into perspective. Could you have done anything differently? No. Can you do anything differently with lockdown right now? Sadly, no. So that's kind of quite important.
For you, you're obviously someone who, if the guys don't know, Suj is a bit of a fucking machine, right? I mean, you don't stop working, basically. I think even when you're sitting down,
keep moving.
You always have to see what's next. Always, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why you don't manage your FPL team like that, but generally speaking, you always have to. I think you can't sit still, is what a lot of people would probably say about you. So then, does this sort of thing where you're not in contact with people regularly, and we know we've got Zoom and things like that, etc., even just from a work perspective, does that bother you mentally, or do you just you just feel like you're someone who's dealt with the cards and you get on with it? Because obviously for a lot of people can't do that, right?
It's the latter. I dealt with the cards that I have, and one of the biggest, if we take it really right back to grassroots philosophical mindset, right, is one of my underlying principles and philosophies in life is that the only true measure of success is happiness. Like, other than that, everything else is not really relevant. Like, a lot of the time when I'm having conversation with people, I'm like, would you rather be 10 out of 10 happy and poor, or 7 out of 10 happy and rich? And people won't always get that, because I'm like, the guy that's 10 out of 10 happy and poor doesn't give a toss about the money, right? So ultimately, aiming for happiness is the most important thing. The problem that a lot of people have is that they don't know yet what happiness is. And a classic example is kids. So you didn't know how happy Harry would make you until he arrived. How could you know? You probably have an inkling that I probably enjoy being a dad. Like, I didn't know how happy my kids would make me until you experience it. So true happiness, until you taste it, you don't know what it is. We get caught as humans trying to chase what our perception of happiness is, because the media and advertising and marketing keeps selling us other stuff, right? It's like, get a new car, get this, get that. And we don't take enough time to draw a line back and think, what actually is happiness? And then lockdown was an opportunity to actually, you know what, really scale it back and think, I quite enjoy hanging out with my kids and spending time with them. That does give me happiness. This second lockdown, there's a lot of things that I did enjoy in the first lockdown. I cooked more than I had for a while.
I ate more than I had for a while.
Got to spend more time with the kids, potentially. I worked on different things that I didn't work on before. For some people, they were able to use that time to work out from home, like fitness-wise or whatever, that they didn't do before, that was giving them happiness. So I think it's really important for people to scale it back and think, what actually gives me my happiness, and then refocus on that. There were people that I didn't connect with, I didn't see physically, face-to-face, mates, probably more than once every 3 months or 4 months, but we'd meet up on Zoom more than we would face-to-face.
Really? That's interesting.
It is, isn't it? Because it's easy to just go upstairs on a Saturday night for an hour, log into Zoom, we'll have a chat and have a beer, and then log off and downstairs and off you go again.
It's worth kind of saying at the moment that me and Suj are quite fortunate in the sense that, you know, we're with partners, we've got kids, the immediate family.
First world problems.
Exactly, right? So we're not going through difficulties. We've got work, etc. We're not going through difficulties that perhaps many of the listeners are going through. Do you feel, when you mention happiness, do you feel like a lot of people, because you hear a lot about, say, like lottery winners, and they couldn't find that happiness. Yeah. Do you feel like for a lot of people, it's not like a search for happiness, it's a search for perfection quite a lot?
Could be perfection. It could be it's a perception of what happiness is, as opposed to actually finding what real happiness is. Real happiness definitely comes from relationships, experiences, and not physical material goods necessarily. Being able to do things. You're far more, if you had money, say you had £200 in your pocket today, you would get more joy and satisfaction from using that £200 to go and watch Spurs play in the UEFA League, Champions League somewhere, than you would from going and buying a new jacket or something. because I know you, because it's the experience and that's real happiness for you. Seeing
He's
Bell
saying I wear
score
the
a
same
goal.
jacket a lot. I'm aware.
Seeing Bell score that goal yesterday, it's the experience of it that's real true happiness for you, which is something that I want to talk about in the main pod. Like, the enjoyment that I'm getting from West Ham this season is it's so high that I couldn't care less about FPL. You know, where you've talked about Tottenham first, FPL second, and there's not even a comparison. I've never had that, but this season I'm getting that because West Ham are doing so well. Suddenly I'm like, you know what, that's where the certain happiness is coming from it, that I enjoy supporting my team.
Haven't won for over a month.
Who?
You.
That's true, actually, but we've also had horrible fixtures and been in games, and performances are really, really interesting that we're going to talk about. So I think this if I say to anything to anyone, like, claw it back and, okay, you're going to lose certain things, but maybe try and evaluate, where does your true happiness come from, or try and experience new things that might be the source of it if you've never experienced it, because maybe you haven't experienced it or found it.
But there's a lot of people, this is really difficult for me and Suj to kind of define, like I said, because we're probably in quite a good place.
Yeah, man.
What about here's an example in terms of how I dealt with something. So my life, probably those who've known me through the pods through the years, quite often, I was in the pub or da-da-da-da-da. So I haven't been in the boozer since the start of March, and I haven't seen any of my social bubble. Mm-hmm. I haven't hardly spoke to them, anything at all. Now, for me, my circumstances changed a lot in terms of double down with Planet FPL, and obviously I've got Harry, the little one now, who's 2 in a couple of weeks, for those who don't know. So my life's very different. I'm able to block the fact that I miss that social. Harry's like a replacement almost.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was becoming that way for me anyway.
Yeah.
But for a lot of other people, there's going to be people listening who probably live on their own, don't have immediate family, or probably think, how am I going to see my kids in the next couple of weeks, etc. You and I can't perceive like how that feels. Do you understand?
Correct.
And we can't define it. I don't. Like, if you said to me, if the wife left me tomorrow and she said, well, you can see Harry every Saturday or something, I'd be like, yeah, but Spurs are playing, you have to make it a different day.
Yeah.
No, you get what I'm saying. I'd be like, well, I don't know how to cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be people listening who obviously got no work,
yeah,
etc. So you and I, we're quite passionate about what we do. For you, it's stuff outside of Planet FPL as well.
Yep.
That keeps us that busy, if you want.
Yep.
And I think that's how I cope with things, is being busy.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of the listeners, they can't be. So how do you get beyond that?
You can be busy. You can find things to do.
In a world where you can't go out.
Yeah.
It's tough.
This is the interesting thing about the entire internet, right? That okay, so
that's a rabbit hole.
Let me give you an example of something that my missus is doing, and I don't know whether it will resonate for some people or not, or what. She's been reading a lot more recently. She's always been into books. Last 4 or 5 months, she's found more time to read. Suddenly, she's like, you know what? I'm quite enjoying reading these books. She launched an Instagram account. Anyone that wants to follow her, it's called I think it's called Cappuccinos _ books or some stuff. Maybe we'll link it up.
10,000 followers by the end of the day.
But so all she does is, once she's read a book, she takes some pictures of it, writes like a little review of it, and sticks it on her Instagram account. And then there's like a whole community of Bookstagram, people that like reading books that are all on Instagram sharing their books. She's now chatting to loads of different people about a shared interest and hobby that she has. She's been sent last week. She's been sent 3 books to read and review by different people that she'd never met. She's been doing this in the last month only, 3 to 4 weeks. We have a FPL community where I've seen people that are starting little community groups, group chats, all the rest of that kind of stuff. Our Slack community, for example. The people in the FPL community have passions. They can think about what your passion is and find a way of engaging with it in the wider community, and find and make new friends. Everybody in our Slack channel and everybody that we've met through FPL meetups and all the rest of it, we consider friends, and they do the same for us. They didn't have us before. We could set up Zoom sessions every evening you can jump on if you want to. You've got mates that you might be able to set private ones up with potentially. You have to go out and find these things. What have you always wanted to do but have never done? Ask yourself that question and try and make it happen. There's so many things that people could do. I think talk about your football club, especially if it's a niche football club, and find that community. Because you don't need to make 500 friends. You need to make 5 or 10 or 15, or start a passion project about something like that.
Are friends important?
Yeah, of course.
From a mental health perspective?
Of course. Relationships are important.
Because? I'm just playing devil's here.
Why are they important? I suppose, having the right friends is important. To discuss and share experiences.
Learnings?
Yeah. I did this, you do that. Someone might be like, you know what? I support Plymouth Argyle, and I'm going to start an Instagram account now where I'm going to find old photos of old Plymouth Argyle players through the years that you can easily download from Google or whatever. I'm going to do 20 minutes research into Joe Bloggs that used to play. Give me a player that used to play for Plymouth. That testing your football knowledge. And then
oh my God,
daily,
I can't think of anyone.
That half an hour, like if you use the write a little, do a bit of research on this player, into the history of your football club, stick a post out and write a bit of copy, and then tag in some people or use some relevant hashtags and engage with other people talking about Plymouth, right? That community might only be 500 people. It's big. It's big enough that you'll make relationships in there, right? And suddenly you've got something that you've been able to get passionate about and build up. And I know there's also the mental health issue of chasing endorphin hits of likes and that kind of thing on social media. Do it because you enjoy it. My wife's going to read these books anyway. That's why she then feels, okay, it's an addition to my core hobby. If you love Plymouth anyway, then just do it. But find these things that can occupy you, and you never know what will come out of it.
I don't think, probably since we had the first lockdown in March, I don't think I've really spoke to anyone about how I feel. But I have subconsciously, because I do it with you every day.
Yeah.
On here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I haven't spoke to any friends at any point to say, oh, I feel like this, or I'm gutted, I can't. I mean, to be honest, first world problems, right? I can't go to Spurs.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? It means a lot to me, but in the grand scheme of things, don't mean fuck all, does it, right? But I've not really, other than on the pod, I've not really spoken about how I feel, etc. Saturday night I had an interesting night because the missus and Harry went out, stayed at my wife's cousin's. So that's the first time since we've been in Restart. Obviously, no Harry, no nothing. So I'm like you, I think. My instinct was I have to be busy. So mine's like, there must be somewhere I can go out. Oh, everything shuts by 10 o'clock. Oh, the whole country's going to be on lockdown anyway. What should I do? Oh, I know. I'll put a camera in my fucking face and I'll invite my patrons to watch me talk about Liverpool v West Ham for 2 hours. That'll keep me busy.
Yeah.
Great. The problem was afterwards. I didn't know what to do afterwards. I had something to eat. And genuinely, very, very nearly, I nearly pulled the Andy Let's Talk FPL special. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to stream at midnight. Because I just wanted something to do. And I didn't really have anything to do. So I was watching football over and over again that I'd already watched. I was watching Wolves and Crystal Palace again. What the fuck? It was shit the first time. Was I watching it for the second time?
Yeah.
Just to keep myself busy, to keep my mind occupied on something. So I completely get the idea. I didn't end up going to bed till 4 o'clock. For no reason. Just for shits and nothing. Just because I didn't really particularly want to or be on my own or anything like that. So I completely get it for... That's just me on one night. I completely get how other people are probably struggling with that. It's well and good in saying, at 5 o'clock you can have the Zoom call, etc., etc. What about afterwards when it gets to midnight and you're not looking forward to the next day? How do you cope with that sort of thing? Because I invariably, what I do, and I've been like this for years, you go to bed quite early.
Yeah, I'd say 10 to 11. Between 10 and 11 as opposed to specifically 10:50.
I don't go to bed till my eyes want to go.
Yeah.
I'm completely different like that. And I think I let my brain go a lot. I mean, these days I let it go a lot, to be honest, for stuff for the podcast. So quite late at night I do my planning for Sky and stuff like that because I just find it easier without the noise of other people, etc. But if you're on your own and stuff, I can get the difficulty where it's all right saying, oh yeah, you talked to someone, what about midnight? What do you do then to keep you mentally in a good place, to have you ready for the next day? So I don't know if you and I can define that properly.
Have you ever thought about trying something new or different?
I don't have time anymore.
but the point is now you do.
Like, you mean like reading, for example, or
Maybe.
something like that?
Why don't you engage with another sport, for example? Because you're into sport.
My it's just not the same. To be honest, football's not the same anymore.
Yeah, but you don't know till you know.
My engagement is, and this is where I'm a little lucky, I can put something on our Patreon Slack channel or put something on Twitter and start engaging with people if I want to. I could do that. I could have fired up a YouTube stream at midnight the other night and known that we would have had a laugh with it and that would have kept us going for a little while. But not everyone can do that. There's going to be guys listening that, oh, I'm not even on Twitter, or I don't know how to reach out to you, or whatever. I don't know where best to advise to start with that, other than what you're saying is start something new.
Yeah, perhaps.
Because a lot of people's problems as well is the negativity you see on Twitter, etc.
Oh yeah, I mean that's toxic.
Is it though?
It can be really frustrating. People post opinions to be controversial and what have you.
Mute these people.
Yeah, you have to be disciplined enough not to rise to the bait.
I hear a lot on Twitter about oh, my timeline's full of shit or whatever. Unfollow people, mute people, clean up your timeline.
Yeah.
What's the chase of followers for? What is it for example?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got 100 followers. Oh, I need 200 followers.
That's the negative side of chasing followers and likes and that kind of thing on social. But the positive side is so many people that you can engage with that will help you. You have to give yourself things to look forward to. Like when you're talking about going to bed, tomorrow's another difficult day. You have to give yourselves things to look forward to, however small or not or what. So set yourself up with, you know what, tomorrow I am going to do this or do that. And then you know you're going to bed, right, when I wake up, I've got that to look forward to. Whatever it may be, watching a rerun of the 1980 Cup final or something.
Well, I knew Saturday night, I knew for me what I was looking forward to was that 11 o'clock, once I saw the Villa Southampton team sheet, I had to fix my Sky team.
Yeah.
And then I was going to be watching wall-to-wall football all day. I knew that. And at some point, the wife and Harry were going to come home.
Yeah.
And then that's it. It's all great. Crack on. I think it's interesting to say that I've not spoke to many people, but then in a weird way, I feel like I'm speaking to all of you every day.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You guys give me feedback on the shit I say or I don't say. I think probably the biggest message to say to people is like, speak up. That's the biggest message here of all, isn't it?
Yeah. I honestly feel like some of the coping mechanisms that I'm talking about here might be, people might listen to them and think, you know what, they're out of my reach. It's hard for me to be able to give people advice. Inside the mind of Suj, I studied NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, which is a form of therapy. Like neuro-linguistic programming is the language you use to wire your brain, right?
You could write that down in front of me and I still don't think I could read it back.
Language patterns, but it's about it's a form of helping people and hypnotherapy and stuff like that. You can't really, you can put out generic advice like, you know what, find what really makes you happy. In the isolation of a statement like that, I'm like, yeah, for somebody that's not going through a good time, it seems so far away to be able to say, well, I don't know where my happiness comes from. Without engaging in a one-to-one conversation, you can't then peel back the layers of the onion to say, okay, this is how you are going to find it. But at a high level, the philosophy is uncover what your real happiness is. Do things that you've never done before. Like, well, where do I start? I understand a lot of these statements that I'm making are so high level that people are like, yeah, but in my situation, there's so much more to unpack. That's why it's difficult to give very generic advice on be more resilient. Don't take things too seriously. All that kind of stuff is hard. That's why you're right. It comes back down to speak up.
I think for the majority of people who perhaps just socially feel a bit negative because of the lockdown thing, etc., the keeping yourself busy thing is really important. Otherwise you just end up empty space, and that's when you let your mind drift to boredom, stuff like that. I think you and I are both the same in our own respective ways in terms of trying to keep ourselves busy.
Yeah.
Feels important. And busy can be playing with Harry, for me, for example. Busy for me can be, do you know what? I'm not just watching Villa Southampton. I'm keeping an eye on Tavernier playing for Rangers as well. That's a set and forgets captain in Scottish football, by the way. It's not that easy for someone sitting there on their own, though, right?
No, definitely not. And you have to use these digital virtual methods of communication they're the only ones you have.
Is there anything from fantasy football that can keep people busy, or is that down a rabbit hole that's really dangerous? Because we haven't touched on it, but obviously FPL does affect people's mental health.
This season specifically, and I know we're only 7 weeks in, you have to stop. You're talking about looking for perfection. You have to stop caring. Where do you think you'll be after this game week? Like 4 million, 3.5?
Oh yeah, 4 mil.
We talk about it all the time. The amount of time we dedicate to it is
I'm in
disproportionate.
the top 8K in Sky now, though. Just saying.
How can
the game
you
that now matters?
Tear back your decisions? There's not a single decision that didn't have good logical thought process behind it. You have to stop care. Like, the result doesn't matter now.
But some people can't.
Sure.
If you said to me, stop caring about Tottenham, I can't do that.
I'd be interested in the people that beat themselves up when they have a bad week. Are they the same people that jump straight on with the humble brag in a good week? Is it a case of, I've got to really milk the really good week and I'm gonna be a real misery guts when I have a bad week? Is it the extremes of emotion? Are they the same people that fall into that bracket?
It's why I tend not to post my score.
Yeah, I think people need to ask themselves, are they in that bracket of both ends of the extreme? Because if you are, then you really need to. Nothing's as ever.
I always
as
post
good as
what my team is going to be, but I tend not to post what my score
I don't
is.
Either.
I mean, to relate back, it's easier for me to relate to Tottenham because it's a weird one, because me and Suj are basically saying, yeah, here's our FPL podcast, switch off from FPL a bit, and we do.
Enjoy the comedy that comes from these kind of tragedies.
I mean, last night when Bale scored, there was a moment afterwards I was like, I'm gonna get so much shit for this because obviously I sold him, but I also didn't care, right?
It doesn't matter. It's not FPL. Should only be enjoyment.
There are people who are obviously playing for money, etc. In private mini leagues, etc. So
I've lost all mine already this season, so I'm done.
This is why I don't go into cash mini leagues.
Yeah.
So there's that rabbit hole of relation to gambling, which is obviously dangerous. We've done that covered that sort of aspect before and can do again in the future. The psychology of dealing with a bad game week is not easy for some. I only have to look on my timeline and realise the importance of, yesterday, hour gone in the Villa game. Oh my God, I can't believe I've got these Villa assets. I've got Grealish and Watkins. And by the end, they've got like over 20 points between the two of them. Right?
Yeah.
And I can't get it. For me, it's just enjoy the football. It's Tottenham that bothers my weekend, but there's a lot of other people who don't have the passion that I do for, say, Tottenham, and FPL's the most important thing of the weekend and affects their mood. So how do you deal with, let's say, the FPL equivalent of the bad beat? You've transferred out Jack Grealish and he's gone and got 15 points.
Ask yourself the same question. Ask yourself this question, how in control are you of your FPL score each week? How in control are you? 50%?
Week to week, it's probably even less, because in terms of what you make transfers and stuff.
So there's something that you're less than 50% in control of, yet you're completely letting it affect your mood. Like, you've made a decision.
But I've got no control in terms of what Tottenham do I?
Of course. No. Again, that's why, if West Ham play badly, I shouldn't let it affect my mood.
But it does, right?
It does. It definitely does. But I'd rather...
So how do you move beyond that? Perhaps that's the answer here. How do you move beyond that?
Perspective. You have to be able to put it into perspective. And why is 11 men running around in shorts, kicking the ball around, able to ruin my Saturday morning with my kids, or my Friday night out with the missus, or whatever it may be for you. Why should it be allowed to? It shouldn't be allowed to. With multi-million-pound owners of the football club that are spending money on this, that, and the other, sitting in their boxes, why should it be allowed to? It shouldn't. It's my own fault for choosing the team 30 years ago.
Oh, that really is, yeah.
But apart from that, that's the only responsibility I have for the team. If you really are disappointed, what do? Change. Go and support Man City. That didn't end well last year.
Don't change teams, guys.
Nah, but if you want glory, then
oh no, I wouldn't have picked my team either.
then pick who wins. But you'll notice that the team that won 2 years ago didn't win last year.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it doesn't. You can't.
All right,
glory.
Good example then. Man United fans, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest supported clubs around the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people would have started supporting United in the 90s because they were the best team, etc., etc. And are probably now sitting there in their late 30s or 40s thinking, Jesus, I'm this far through my life and I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
We look average.
Yeah.
What is this? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with... To be honest, I don't know if you can relate that to...
Corona.
Personal life being difficult in the sense that you're used to being successful and then right now you can't see success coming forward. How do you deal with that?
My personal view is nothing lasts forever. Whether it's good or bad, nothing lasts forever. Corona will end. This thing will end.
Will it?
Yeah, man. Corona will not be here forever. We'll find a vaccine, or we'll find a way of containing it, or worst case scenario is herd mentality. And yeah, we'll have lost a hell of a lot of lives, and we don't want to go down that road. But it will not be here forever. Something else may come and take its place. Possibly, yeah, sure. But this specific situation we are in will not last forever. It may last a few months, but it's not forever. There's good times as well. Manchester United win the league every single year. It won't last forever. What did they think in the 90s and 2000s? That 20 years later they were still going to be winning the league.
Yeah,
they were going to win 35 out of 40.
You ask a Liverpool fan in the 80s or in 1990 if they thought it was going to be 30 years. They just no, don't be silly.
No. So yeah, but they didn't think they'd win it every 3 out of 4 years consistently for 20 years. So 15 out of 20. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. Nothing good or bad lasts forever, in my opinion.
See, you and I are a bit different on what happens next. I can't see the end of this.
I didn't say I know when it's going to be.
No, I know you don't.
But at some point it will end.
I can't see that right now. I can't. For me, I can't see me going to football again. I just can't see it.
We have countries that were able to get cases down to zero through effective management. Understandably, there were smaller countries like New Zealand or Korea where the populations are not as big and their style of transportation and all that kind of stuff is different. I get that. But they were able to control it. We have vaccines that are in trials already, and there's certain studies that have shown successful results. So we're making progress in that space. I have to take that evidence as what direction are we going in. The reason that cases are on the up now is because in this country, if you look around, no one gives a fuck. Like, in terms of the rules and social distancing, everyone's out and about and shopping and living their normal lives. We're living as normally as we can with most people wearing masks, but kids are in school, universities have opened, hang on a second, and the spike has been happening. The government delayed this lockdown a little bit too much, in my opinion.
The schools have got to stay open, in my opinion.
They do. I mean, they do, but it will increase the risk of spread of the virus.
I get that. But, I mean, for Harry to have had no social contact with anyone at his age for 3 months, I think was pretty damaging, really.
Very difficult. And these are difficult times. But I just think eventually we will come out of this. Some point by spring, I think we'll be out of it.
I hope so, mate.
If they'd have announced COVID-20 instead of COVID-19, people would be... I think we're bored of it.
Really?
You know, Trump is... The election's tomorrow in America.
I knew you was going to get this in.
He's been going on about how the media just keeps going on about it and how bored it is. He shouldn't be saying that.
No shit. It was a lot of stuff he shouldn't be saying.
But he is right that people are fed up of listening to that same shit. Like, what he's saying is a sentiment of what people are feeling. oh, more COVID news again. Oh, they're banging on about it again. Yeah, I'm going to wear my mask. Yeah, I'll wash my hands. A lot of people think that way. He as the president's not the one that should be saying that that's how everyone's thinking. He should be at least having some level of like sensible advice that he gives out to people. Madness, but people are fatigued from it. If we'd announced COVID-20, people would start shitting themselves again and actually go back, oh, maybe this is worse. Yeah. And the newness of it would have caused people into a certain level of fear that might make them adhere to the lockdown a little bit better. It's difficult. I really understand it. We're doing this podcast. I feel like some people will listen to it and be like, yeah, but you guys don't understand our situation or my situation. And that's why, I mean, your tweet that you put out, DMs are open and we're open to chat to people. I think offline we'll have a separate conversation about what we can maybe do to help people get through it a little bit. Our community does help. The FPL community does help in every way it can. So engage with it, but take my philosophy on life in whatever way you want to, but take James's advice there as really important. Speak out.
Yeah, it wasn't just. I obviously tweeted the other night. It was straight after your game, basically when I come off the stream. Yeah. Saw the news. We was going back into lockdown, and just absolutely, my DMs are open. Absolutely, my DMs are open for this, for people to say, this is how I feel, or what do you think of this, etc. I've said this before, and it's not really jokes, but like when I get the screenshot of the team, someone says faults. My faults are I'm not even going to look at it. I haven't got time. I've really got no interest in what someone else's team is, unless they're specifically saying, what do you think of this? I need some help with this. I don't mind. But the main reason my DMs are open is not for those. It's for people to come in and say, I need some help. What do you think of this? This is how I feel. I want to be open to everybody. Suj's DMs will be open as well, but he won't respond for about a week because he won't.
Slow response times. Well, during lockdown, I might outsource it.
Because he won't look. And the other thing is, obviously, which I was thinking about this morning, is I keep, and this happens particularly through the fact we've got a Patreon, is there's a lot of guys and girls who listen to us who are not on Twitter, and I think it's easy for us to forget that.
Yeah, true.
So email as well, james@planetfpl.com is absolutely fine as well. If you think, I don't want to have a Twitter account, etc., and I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't. So yeah, reach out, absolutely. And our doors will always be open. I think we can't empathise with everybody's circumstances different in terms of how they feel, what their personal issues are. The number one thing is don't suffer alone. Speak up.
Yeah.
I will message with people every fucking day if need be. It's not a problem. There are people listening to this who know that I'm out there and always open. And that will stay the same. So yeah, Suj and I are in a position where we're okay at the moment. I think Suj always will be. I probably will be as well.
You never know.
But yeah, we're open, and the number one thing is speak up. And it obviously doesn't have to be to us, but I don't think anybody should feel like they're suffering alone at the moment. Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of people do feel. And what's an issue to you in terms of, I've lost my job, I haven't got a job, is obviously massive. But just because you're in a position where perhaps mentally you think, oh, well, I'm happy with my kids, I'm happy with my partner, I've got a job, everything's quite good, but I don't feel right, that's even more reason to speak up.
Massively.
Genuinely.
Massively.
It's okay to not feel all right. Speak up about it.
There are things that take the job example as a good one, right? I employ people. Doesn't mean I've got jobs going and everyone send me your CVs.
I know that you employ people.
And we like the ones that bring treats in on Fridays.
That's why official FPL hasn't approached me yet.
But it's like, do you know what? If someone might be working in the same place for 5 years or 6 years or 7 years and say, you know what, I don't even know where to start now going out and looking for another job. That I can help someone with. I can give you a good idea of, like, if you want to send me your CV and say, do me a favour, like, have a look at it and tell me how this could be better.
You've opened a rabbit hole there.
But it's like something that you might not have considered that we could be helpful with. Or do you know what? If I've got the time to give you 20 interview questions that you might get asked to think about your answers to, or whatever, or that kind of thing. What's a good strategy for getting a job? There's a young guy that started work here, and he got the job firstly because he could do the job, but after he found the job listing on a job board, he found every contact within the organization that he could, and he direct emailed everyone and direct LinkedIn everyone saying, yo, I've seen the job, I'm going to apply through the job board anyway, but I thought I'd give you a WhatsApp as well. Strategies like that exist. I can help people with ideas.
I didn't get that message.
Nah, the important ones, I said, James. Or like I mentioned, like my wife started her Instagram creative account, which is just a little thing that she does on the side, but she really gets joy out of it. I can give people ideas on what you might be able to do that you could pursue as a little side thing. Simple conversations like that. And we can't spoon feed people solutions, but we can point them in the right direction. And so it never hurts to ask. What's the worst that we can say? Actually, do you know what? I have no idea about that.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is obviously get into things like what you said in terms of reading. It can be anything, right? Binge watch something, Netflix, Prime or whatever. Old football tends to do the trick for me. Yeah. Whether it be Spurs or something else. There's a guy I've started following on YouTube who posts Tottenham videos from the 70s, 80s. Yeah. And there's loads of it I've never seen before. Yeah. It's like, okay, that'll give me 15, 20 minutes of something. I mean, it's before my time, but I think, I never knew about that. Yeah.
But what you don't know is what it's giving him. He might have started that in lockdown because he's bored and thought, you know what, this is something that I could pursue potentially. And there are things out there for people that will be happy to kind of help and point you in the right direction. Yeah.
That's it.
There we go.
Speak up.
Please
do.
The
number one message.
And we'd love, just email us or whatever in terms of feedback and ideas that you may have. If there's something that you think has helped you that you want to share with the community, then let us know as well, because we can be a platform to help get that out there, whether it's through an audio note or write a little something that we can share on Twitter. Most importantly at the moment, the health of yourselves and your family and friends and anybody else around you is the most important thing. So do what you can to stay safe. And that's it, really. Ciao for now.
Is that your sell for the week, is it?
Yeah, we've got content coming at you every day as always. Main podcast tomorrow, Sky Fantasy Football Wednesday.
Just sounded like such a sad ending. I wanted to do it again.
I think we've covered a lot of topics there, so get yourselves deep in thought. Plenty of content coming at you. Engage with us wherever you can. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man, child.
That was a better ending.
It was.
There we go.